Hard games are hard, and the majority of people coming home after a long day probably just want to play an easy game. So I had the brilliant idea that nobody else on YouTube has ever had before to disguise my game as another kind of game. We are disguising my hard game today as an easy one. Alright, so you guys already saw the super cool landscape that I had set up, and this little guy named Billy. Billy can do a bunch of stuff. He can run, turn around some more, I don't know, that's it, I guess. But something he cannot do is when he gets hurt by literally anything, he has absolutely no reaction. So we need to add this thing called RagDoll physics, which I'm sure many of you guys have heard of before. The reason we're adding them is so we can know when Billy has had enough, because he is going to be getting thrashed around a lot. And luckily it is all built into Unity, so you just drag a bunch of stuff into some other stuff and you get this. If you can't take this kind of Billy torture, I suggest you click off because it is going to get so much worse. We are going to be lining the path to the winning button with a bunch of inconspicuous little doodads that are going to absolutely decimate Billy. So with that, let's move on to the first trap. We're going to start pretty simple for the first one. We're not using any sort of peak creativity here. We're just throwing a vase onto a stool, putting it out there and hoping it doesn't sound any alarms in the player's head. Now at this point, you're probably asking yourself, why should alarms be sounding in my head for this innocent looking vase? Well, that right there, that is why. After getting launched to space for the first time, it might have dawned on the player that this might not be that easy of a game. But also not too hard, because all they gotta do is just dodge any sort of suspicious looking item in their way, right? Wrong, because for trap number 2, we are using psychological warfare to make them go exactly where we want them to. Let me just set up these boxes and then I'll explain. Okay, so there's this thing in game development where the devs will just paint anything really important in yellow, and our brain just kind of subconsciously takes us there. I have no clue why this works, but we're gonna try and use this in our game right now. Since I got this box model off of the Unity asset store, I didn't really know how to open the texture and add my own yellow paints on, so I just got a bunch of like little squares, turned them yellow and put them all over the boxes. It looks conspicuous, but I'm hoping it's not to the player. The reason for all this psychological warfare though is pretty simple. We just need the player to step on this little guy. Because when you do so, all of his friends aren't coming to help. You aren't getting swarmed by ants or anything. No, there is a Delta Direct going straight for your face. There is absolutely zero way to outrun this. I made the radius for the collider way too big. It pretty much just nukes the entire map. It nukes Billy, it nukes the player out of existence and just pisses them off more. So we are looking great for trap number 2. Moving on to trap number 3, I was thinking we could do something a little bit different. For this one, we are not going to be rewarding skill or very keen observation skills. No, we are leaving it up to a 1 of 3 coin flip, which is literally one of my least favorite mechanics in video games, but it's okay because this is a hard game, I guess, so it's justified. Alright, so to start this trap, we're just going to lay out 3 very obvious black tiles in front of the player. And whenever the game starts or the player respawns, these little things are going to randomly spawn on 2 out of the 3 black tiles. These things are called box colliders, and when you touch them, well, in this instance, they do something really bad. Billy's not going to have a good time. Because when Billy does end up touching one, this test tube looking thing is going to come on up, and it is going to fill up with gas. Actually, he kind of does look like he's having a good time. He's sort of huffing that stuff right now. And if you want to have a good time too, then I suggest subbing to this channel because we make bad games here, and if that's your thing, I got it. I got plenty of bad games coming in the future, so just sub and keep an eye out. Now that we got the begging section out of the way, let's move on to trap 3.5.
But Sir Dupe, how is it 3.5?
Well, little Jimbo, let me show ya. The reason I'm not really counting this one as a trap is because it's another coin flippy kind of trap. You see, every single second in game, I have the computer polling to see if it should trigger an event that has a 1 out of 300 chance. In less confusing words, every single second the player has a 1 out of 300 chance to get struck by lightning. There is no dodging, there's no weaving, nothing. They just instantly die. Hence why we're not calling it a trap. Because even in the last chance related trap, the player at least had the option to pick which way they went, but for this one, it's literally just completely random insta-death. I wanted to make it feel unfair without making it feel too unfair, so I made sure to get the math right. The player has a 63.2% chance of getting struck by lightning within 5 minutes, which I think is pretty good odds considering the game is quite short, but as you can see, I got struck by lightning at just over a minute. So even though the lightning does seem rare in the grand scheme of things, it's still pretty random. Since we've been taking it pretty hard on the player with all of the random chance death, we are just gonna go back to basics for trap number 4, I think. Okay, so for trap number 4, I made 2 different models. We have an electric post, I'm blanking on the name right now, and we also have this cute little sheep guy. Something super cool that I learned when making the electrical post thingy is how to use textures, and for all the game devs out there who are probably miles ahead of me, this is super basic, I know it is. It's actually pretty easy to do, but I think it adds a lot more to the models that I'm going to be making in future games. Anyways, enough ranting about textures, and more on how this trap is actually going to work. Okay, so the way this trap works, pretty lazy, pretty boring, not gonna lie, so I'm just gonna zip past it super quick. Okay, so we got sheep on one side, electrical post on the other. Billy walks up to sheep, Billy explodes. Pretty simple, pretty lazy, right? But it is also setting us up for this next trap because Billy needs to take a very specific route on the left side of the electric pole to make it out safely. So we can kind of just funnel the player into whatever we want next. And the thing we want to lure him into is this. You guys already know what this is, it's a box collider just like from the earlier acid trap, but this one is going to have no visual indicators whatsoever. It's just going to be completely invisible and probably piss off the player the first time they step in it because they are just at the finish line. Okay, so now we know that these guys do something when you step in them, right? But this one is a little bit different than the acid one. When you step in this collider, it is going to spawn a bunch of these guys. Now I know that they don't look like a lot, but these are killer drones that will stop at absolutely nothing to hunt the player down until they're dead. And the second that the player starts to see all of these killer drones spawning, his first instinct is just going to be, let's run to the button, end the game, finally win, put this behind us. But we already prepared for that because we put an invisible wall all around the button except for right here. And once the player figures out that all they have to do is loop around and come to the button from the other side, they are greeted with this beautiful piece of art that I call a windscreen. And that's it for the video. Lots of fun to make. Just let me know whatever kind of games you guys want to see next in the comment section below. Thanks for watching and have a great rest of your day.